Well, Brian, did you buy Tesla last Tuesday afternoon at the close, and then sell it and go short Thursday night, and then buy it back Friday, or sell your shorts on Friday night and buy back and take advantage of the big run up again this morning? Were you smart enough to do all that?
I did not, and I will tell you, if I had, I'd have doubled, tripled my money, but I'm not smart enough. I would have done the opposite and lost it all. So I know what I'm about, Randy.
I didn't.
I'm about 5'6".
About 5'6". Okay, well, there you go. I used to be 5'9 3/4", but it's coming down a bit. That happens. I hate to tell you.
I hate to be told.
Anyway, okay, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about patents.
Because this is moving it. This is moving it. The people who understand what they're looking at can see this and go, "Oh, aha, light bulb."
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a company who open sources all their patents, who says, if you are in the business and you want to steal our patents, well, not steal, if you want to use our patents, we're not going to charge you a licensing fee. Now, I don't think that's going to be 100% true anymore, because obviously they're going to, when it comes to full self-driving, patent or not, if you want the full self-driving program, you're going to have to pay for that patent.
Well, on that patent, it's not a matter of, the patent describes some of the very basic operations of what it does. You and I could steal that patent and never, ever make it work.
It's like they talk about the nuclear bomb.
Exactly.
You can have all
there's a gulf of disconnect between theory and practice.
Exactly. All right. So SETI_Park, I guess his full name is SETI Park, and he puts an underscore in it when you are looking for him on X. He searches through patents, I guess, for a living. I think this is what he does. I believe this is what he does, and then alerts different companies from time to time. I don't know exactly how that works, but so he does this for free for all of us when it comes to Tesla. And he pulled up, I ran out of counting ability.
I did as well. Oh gosh, way more. When you told me the topic for today, I said, awesome, I'm going to go do the research. And at an hour and a half, I was like, okay, I've gone through, I don't know, 10, 12 patents here. I have to sleep.
You do have to sleep from time to time. It helps.
It helps.
Well, I think let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen here, and you know how good I am at this, at sharing my screen.
Technology generally is really your strong suit.
It is not my strong suit. So, Brian, I can't be sure which one is the most important, but I'm just going to suggest that maybe the most important one is the unboxed particular product. And this is the patent picture, the main picture for the unboxed process. What did you learn as you reviewed the patent about the unboxed process?
So there's a lot of nothing here and a lot of hidden something. So what we're seeing in most basic terms is what we knew we were going to expect. That front module is not just the lower casting, but it is everything that would be mounted on top of it. The one just above that you're pointing at, that. And the rear assembly, same deal. It's all the pieces that you would actually need. But this gives more insight. This could be a hint that it is a single row vehicle, that is actually a two-seater with a center console. And then you look at those side panels, and those are just vague representations, but don't those kind of match some of the drawings we've seen from the wall of potential candidates? Unboxed is huge, and I've had conversations with a number of engineers about this over the last year and a half, 2 years. Everything Tesla's been working on since the Model 3 has been steps toward unboxed. And what we're looking at is, so I asked the engineers, why has it never been done? Why didn't your company do it? And the answer was, well, it was impossible. You can't join whole segments of stamped steel. It doesn't work. You'd have giant seams. But if you're going to be doing the body in a style like this, all of a sudden you can. They said, but it's still impossible. The hydraulic lines run the length of the vehicle. The wiring harness runs the length of the vehicle. And then I come back to them and say, well, they've got 48 volt. They can just connect it using standard clips, standard connectors. And they said, right, but you still need the hydraulics to run the length of the car. And the answer is, well, not necessarily if you're using drive-by-wire and brake-by-wire, steer-by-wire and brake-by-wire. So all of those pieces start coming together, and you have the opportunity to build things in a way that engineers have wanted to for generations, but haven't been able to. So to me, that's the biggest takeaway here.
And so as it shows here, the things that it talks about in terms of the benefits: reduced factory footprint and complexity, increased manufacturing parallelism and efficiency, improved flexibility for the different vehicle modules, potential for higher automation in the assembly process, and reduced material handling and transport inefficiencies.
All correct. All correct. You've seen what an assembly line looks like. It's a line. It is a line. And if something happens to stop that line, if there's something wrong with one piece of one vehicle, it can stop the entire line. All that line is idle. Now, all modern lines have the ability to pull vehicles out to get the line moving again. This negates so much of that because the line itself is only doing a few dozen steps instead of 1,000 steps. So you can have, just as you would have a bin with 30 of the part that you're about to put into the car waiting. If that bin runs empty, now you're stopped. Well, now that bin would have a front end in it. There'd be a line of front ends waiting, and you can very easily manage. You know how quickly you're going to be needing more of them. It's a lot more predictable. The line can move with less downtime.
And there was something about, they said the automated framing station enables efficient joining of vehicle sections in different directions. Example, side sections can be joined horizontally while other sections are joined vertically.
And that's a big one. Is Tesla was the first modern company to take a new step in use of cubic space, of actually taking advantage of the volume of space rather than the linear distance of it. Ford has always had a process at the end of the line called marriage, where they take the whole top of the car and put it on the whole bottom of the car. But that's the only step that really utilized vertical space. We know Tom Jew is not a fan of the vertical system because vertical motion adds substantial complexity to the line itself. But if it's going to result in greater efficiency, then it's still worth it.
All right, so we get these different modules, and these modules are made in different parts of the factory. We bring them all together using conveyors or whatever. They all come together, and then they're put together either vertically or horizontally. Apparently with very few welds. It's more like a Lego deal, like popping them together. Is that your understanding?
That isn't my understanding,
Okay.
but I don't see anything in here that would give me the answer to that. When it comes to joining the battery with the castings, those are bolts. Those just bolt together. But when it comes to components beyond that, I don't have an answer.
There has been this tendency, though, throughout everything that they're doing to come up with fasteners instead of welds. I don't know whether, obviously welding is expensive. Welding is let's say, almost has to be done on a line as opposed to being done, in this way. So I think there's some evidence, at least, that they're trying to get away from welding as much as they possibly can.
I think it would be interesting if they could. It would improve repairability if the entire rear of the car could be unbolted and replaced. Could you imagine getting in your car gets seriously smashed into on the side of the road while it's parked, and you look at it, you think that might be totaled, and the service center looks at it and says, "Oh, we can have it back to you tomorrow." Yeah, just swap it out. Now that would, of course, create the potential for NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness because of rattling, because it loosens over time. But it also means you could tighten it back up. And there are ways to put just, gaskets in those joints to improve it and whatnot. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities, but this patent doesn't quite go deep enough to give us those answers.
So then the next one was on wiring. And this was one that we've We spent some time. Oh, that's another one on the inside. I'm sorry, I went the wrong direction here.
I think,
Anyway,
yeah,
was
wiring.
wiring in terms of the segmentation, or again, almost as you started, as you mentioned just a few minutes ago, going into more of a situation where the wiring now is also in the various sub-assemblies, if you will, that are brought together. Is that how you kind of understood this one?
So I'm not entirely sure on this, but I am fortunate enough to know a whole lot of people with a whole lot of different expertise. And one of my um, viewers who I had a chance to meet earlier this year reached out to me this morning and said, I've got a presentation I've put together about the new Tesla transfer protocol, and I'd be happy to share it with you. But having this, if there's no reason you can't do this, the voltage is such that very small, very affordable connectors can work, and but the structural cables part is a little more confusing to me. I don't know. I mean, are these guitar strings that are holding it in place? I'm not sure how that part works.
But in general, what we would have is that the wiring for the trunk would not be coming from the front of the car, and the wiring from the headlights would not be coming from the back of the car, and they wouldn't be having to go across the center of the car. So you'd have modularized sub-assemblies for pre-wiring that are fitting around a backbone structure for the centralized wiring. But in this particular case, if it has to go from the front segment of the car to the next segment of the car, it might be some kind of a plug-in between those two, as opposed to a set of harness wiring that's going the full length of the car.
Imagine if you had to have a wire that runs the full length for every individual purpose. If your blinker wire has to run all the way to your battery, that's an inefficient use. And this appears to be a way to further reduce the amount of wiring that's in the vehicle. And that would be, a savings. If you can save, again, if you can save $5 on a million cars, you're talking, $50 million over 10 years. That's a whole lot of money.
So we're reducing the size of the wiring because it's a fraction of the size to run 48 that it is compared to 12 volt. Then you're reducing the amount of wiring because it's going to not go all the way front to back to do these things. Then you're additionally reducing the amount of wiring because you're doing some of it by using Wi-Fi or other kinds of ways of transmitting, not 100% transmitting by wires. Am I getting that right?
I don't know about the wireless part, but I can say that the other huge advantage is it is easier to design. It is easier to install. There is less margin for error, which results in less repair costs down the road. Um, the simpler a system is, it's not just the atoms that you're reducing, it's the complexity overall, which means the cost overall, which means the testing and validation happens in a fraction of the time. It's just better.
And I did misspeak a minute ago. The Wi-Fi is wrong. It would be Bluetooth, I think, or a Bluetooth type system.
But wireless in general is part that I was not as familiar with.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing now because the rest of the pictures that go along with these patents were not instructive, or at least not to me. They were so complex. So the next one was, and by the way, the next would be a connection process. No, that's still with regard to the wiring. I'm sorry. Let's go on down here. Event-based data collection. So this one was totally new to me. Completely, I think, a really big deal. Got a lot of conversation on X from people that know a lot more than I do about these kind of things. But what we're talking about here is the way that the dojo, or the way that the learning systems will collect, sort, and then manage and reuse for the purposes of FSD. So help me understand it.
Well, it sounds like it's just an automated system to, when you have a disengagement, you can file a report. That report is then presumably transcribed rather than, I mean, it may as well be recorded, but I don't know for sure. Why would it need to be? It may just be transcribed. The cameras gather all the data from the last probably minute or so, all the telemetry. And this sounds like a way to, an automated way to synthesize that into something bite-sized that can either be processed or reviewed by a human in a fraction of the time.
Yeah. So they say that the core innovations on this one would be an event-based indexing of the vehicle operation data. So I'm thinking that this goes even beyond just like the disengagements and things like that, but any kind of data, maybe around an accident, data around the car itself, how it's operating, because we know that they're also collecting that kind of data, in order to be not only better at FSD, but to be better at engineering future cars and things of this nature. And
And an
so,
event could be something as small as a hitting the turn signal or tapping the accelerator, just a small intervention that's not a disengagement. Um, and I imagine it would be scalable between extremes as well.
yeah, I think we're talking about though beyond just FSD. I think we're talking about like if there was an overheating problem or if
Mm.
the car wouldn't start in freezing weather or things of this nature. So then it says there'd be a query system for retrieving specific event types. And so this again would be, since you're now putting it in the file. My partner and I used to have this funny, well, it's his joke actually, not mine, because I'm not nearly as funny as you are, my ex-partner. And
Yes. Mhm.
he would say that he was really, really maybe one of the best filers in history. His problem was always unfiling. That was the that was
Classic.
classic. Anyway, and so this will be the same thing. So okay, I can grab all this data and I can throw it into the files, but now when I want to get to it, how do I do that? And so this apparently is a better system for retrieving the specific event types.
Yeah, for cataloging, a lot of times there are companies you will find who don't have a lack of data. They have a lack of ability to understand the data they have. They might have too much data. In fact, they might not even know whether they have too much or not enough because they can't find what they're looking for.
Yeah, and so apparently what this does is it reduces the amount of space necessary to grab this data, makes it faster to be able to access the data, and more efficient in terms of its understanding and ability then to then use the data and in a lot of cases we're talking about completely hands-free. The data will be organized, analyzed, and then updates into the system will have nothing to do with human hands. It'll all be done by this new system.
Mm.
I think that's what it's going to.
And real quick before we move on, remember the reason why are you filing all these patents if you don't intend to prosecute others for using them or sue them for using them? And the answer is because if you don't file the patent, someone else will. And then you can't use it. And you certainly can't let others use it. So it's their way of, the when insulin was invented, it was patented, but he gave the patent away. So others couldn't swoop in and say, no, I did it. Give me trillions. No, they would have to wait all these years and then somehow find a way to rob people to death.
And then in case my analysis was not clear enough, maybe Tesla's in their patent would be better. Here are the key advantages: efficient retrieval of relevant data without downloading entire data sets. So narrower ability, flexible query system supporting various event types and criteria, reduced data duplication and storage requirements, and improved analysis capabilities for autonomous system development. It says this innovative system significantly enhances the ability to analyze specific aspects of vehicle operation data, potentially accelerating the development and improvement of ADT.
I think if they were to bring those innovations to YouTube, you and I would be out of business. And to narrow down the relevant information, oh man, I better find something else to discuss.
All right, then we have a transformer.
So that one excited me. That was one I pushed you on. It's just a little actuator that it looks like it is a the sort of thing you could use maybe to fold the mirror. It could do anything that needs a small degree of motion. But what's special about, well, it's all integrated into one thing. And it's insane to me that, first of all, I never thought of it, but you never thought of it. And the people who do this for a living never thought of it. And well, we've got four things we put together to make one thing do one thing. And we just do it that way because we've always done it that way. And there may have been times when they tried to combine them, but when you put actuators onto chips, you can get interference, you can get noise, you can get all kinds of problems. But there are ways to mitigate that. Would you like a car that you and I are going to build a car? Would you like it to have 100,000 parts or 10,000 parts? And this is just one very simple, very elegant way to get all of it done by a thing instead of a series of things.
And for those of you who are technical enough to care, this is the integration of a transformer and the inductor into a single structure. It uses a planar design utilizing PCB traces as windings. I have no idea what that matters, what that says. Magnetic flux shaping techniques to minimize losses. I think that's part of what you were just talking about. And then metal shielding to suppress stray magnetic fields. So
exactly. Well, I'm glad I read that one closely enough to be able to, for my description to match what it actually says. Yeah. Now, one that I also said we need to cover was the inductive charging.
Yes.
Now I've seen a lot of ambitious optimism on that front. When the supercharger team was wholesale slaughtered, a lot of people said, well, it doesn't matter because inductive charging is coming, right? But it's not here. That's the problem. I'm not expecting my car that already exists to be retrofitted for inductive charging. And I don't expect other manufacturers to be required to put those in. And I don't expect humans to necessarily be good enough drivers to place themselves over an inductive charging pad with sufficient accuracy. A robotaxi, on the other hand, would be ideal for that because the best charging cable in that situation is no charging cable. Optimus could plug it in. Yes, but in that case, the best Optimus would be no Optimus because just wouldn't it be great if when it's at the depot we could put these in highways. Please don't. That's a terrible idea. We'd have to pave the world in charging pads to bleed so much energy to get level 2 equivalent. Please don't. Let's take it down all the way to the level of the boring tunnel. If you had a boring tunnel specific vehicle, and at some point it is expected that the boring tunnels of the world will be in sufficient quantity that you can design a custom vehicle for it and produce it at a volume that makes sense in terms of economies of scale. How large does your battery need to be if as soon as it reaches the station and parks to let people load and unload, it is already charging? You only require range of, let's say, 2x the longest gap in stations on the network. So you could probably use a 5 kilowatt hour battery pack, maybe 10. And that's enough battery. Well, now the car is much lighter and more efficient. You've already got a small motor. You don't need breakneck acceleration if you're in a controlled environment of a tunnel. So the vehicle's lighter still. You don't need all weather tires. You can have tires that are specific to clean, dry, smooth pavement. So your wheels are cheaper, your tires are cheaper, and they're going to last for 3 times as long because there's no hard starts and stops. But the big thing is they don't go back to the depot to charge. They charge at the stops. And I think that's where this patent in this application makes nothing but sense. But for other applications, it could as well. For robotaxis generally, it could still make all the sense in the world.
Yeah. So in other words, even if it was your car and you decided to put it out into the robotaxi network and you were going to leave it out there pretty much, what people are considering full time. So we're talking maybe 6,000 miles a month of actual travel with 4,000 miles a month of revenue. it's going to need to charge fairly frequently, and that could potentially be done at your home, but it might also potentially be done at some charging lot where it might be faster, it might be cheaper. And the car could go in there, be inductively charged with hands-free. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be cheaper, in part because it doesn't have to be. And beating the price of your own home energy is very difficult. But wouldn't you pay a penny a kilowatt for the convenience of it not having to come home and plug it in? I mean, you'd pay more than that probably. And wouldn't it be crazy when, if I don't normally drive my robo taxi, but sometimes I do. I'm definitely going to have it drop me at the airport for my 3 weeks in Italy. And you know what? If I'm in Italy for 3 weeks, go pay for my trip, would you? That'd be a very different world, Randy.
Yeah. So in that, what I was starting to say in that earlier case was, if that was your case, and you were planning to make a lot of money off the car, then if you did want to retrofit it, if there was a way to do it inexpensive with it, for a couple of $1,000s, it might well be worth it.
I don't see that coming.
Okay.
I don't see that coming. I think there's, for that matter, would you be comfortable retrofitting your car to have a second plug on the other side?
If I was putting it out?
Yeah, having a mechanic crack into your high voltage system and add a charger.
Well, that's another thing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is it would have to do that. And so no, that's too much surgery.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I think those were, oh no, there was one more here. This is a kind of in the weeds deal, but ultra hard cold work steel alloy for corrosion resistant vehicle bodies.
Mm-hmm. I think this is just a follow-up, a additional version of an alloy that they may be considering in lieu of the one that they're using for Cybertruck. If you're going to put a non-painted surface on the next on the RoboCab, on the RoboTaxi, they might need a different alloy. That alloy may need to be patented. I did see a great shirt. It looked like Back to the Future, but it had a Cybertruck, and it said, "Where we're going, we don't need paint."
Yes. So anyway, there's a few. Were there any others that you saw that you thought we should talk about? Those were the main ones I saw.
We could spend 3 days on them, but I think those are a good start for viewers.
Okay.
And what I would say is, in the comments, if there's other patents you'd like us to discuss, hey man, we're here.
That's right. Put about
in Vancouver.
I guess. Yeah, in Vancouver. Well, come home. Well,
I will do that.
That's okay. All right. Hey, Brian, thanks. Thanks for helping me to my pea brain wrap around some of these things that are outside my pay grade. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.